Okay. I'm Don Brown. I have been credentialed to the Assemblies of God for about, 35 years, something like that. Two right here, just for you guys.
Are you kidding me?
Seats of honor. You get here late, you gotta get in without waiting at least, right?
I'm not. Where's Darren?
We love you guys.
No, we got a friend back here. We're going back here, straight back.
Oh, great back. Look at this.
Look we got a friend and there's two.
All right, I'm gonna need some
Straight to
copies.
the
I
back
got
of the
copies.
class.
We may have to double up after all.
There is
Okay.
no way that I'm sitting in the front row.
If you wouldn't mind, yeah.
He
Looks like
spit.
you're gonna need it.
How many copies?
So I'm guessing
10.
that should be 10, and I do them front to back.
Front to back on that.
One to two, yeah.
Okay, got it.
Staple.
Yep.
You're a gentleman and a scholar. I don't care what they say about you. He is a good guy, he really is.
You got handouts. I need handouts.
I have one handout. Okay. That's it. We've got two here and one there, so we got 2 seats and three more outlines, 3 seats. You coming? Not yet. 2 right here in the front. Seats of honor. All right. Brave man. What's your name? Silas.
Jerry.
Okay, we'll do this. I'll do the kid thing and the grown-up thing. I don't know, maybe both. Who knows? Okay, so I've been credentialed to the Assemblies of God for roughly, off and on, 35 years, mostly on. I have a Master of Divinity degree from the Assemblies of God Theological Seminary. I have taught this subject and many others in Bible college. This is a sort of a boiled down version, so I'm not hopefully going to get anybody lost by being overly, pedantic or whatever. But if I say something and the language gets away from me and I get too fancy Dan with what I say and you don't understand it, or you just need a recap or whatever, please get my attention, ask the question. I would much rather get the questions answered, because if you have a question in your head and it doesn't get answered, you know what's going to happen? It's going to stay there and you're going to miss what happens next. And all of a sudden you're lost out in the middle of la-la land trying to figure out what in the world happened. Where are we? What are we talking about? So does that make sense? I welcome questions. These 3 guys back there, and actually there's a whole crew of them, they know that. And they are not afraid to ask questions. And I'm not afraid to answer them. He does too. So anyway, I have taught at Trinity Bible College up in Ellendale, North Dakota. I've taught at the Oakland School of Urban Missions, which was a 2-year degree granting organization that people would come from the hood and get a 2-year degree and go back to the hood and plant churches. When I was in North Dakota, it was kind of interesting. We had a yard sale or garage sale preparing to leave to go to California, and this guy kind of out of the blue said something that kind of startled me. He says, well, it's kind of dark out there in Oakland, right? Wink, wink. I said, I thought for a minute and almost skipped a beat, but not quite. And I said, well, we can either stand around and complain about the problems in the inner city. I'm going to go there and teach classes, and people are going to come to those classes, and after a couple of years, they're going to be equipped to go back in their neighborhoods and plant churches. So I'd rather do something positive about it. He said, well, that's true. Okay, so, it's amazing how people get wrapped up in their way of thinking. The same thing applies to this question of creation versus evolution. There is an almost combative resistance to anything indicating creation, intelligent design, any of the things we're going to talk about here. And part of what we want to do is help you understand, if you don't, what's going on with all the questions, or at least the main questions salient to that. And also equip you with enough information to be able to respond. Now, you guys are parents. I assume you're a parent, right? And some other parents here in the room. But, you have kids in the public school system, they're going to get fed this stuff as if it was law and settled. It's not. Evolution is still a what?
Theory.
Theory, exactly. And so the problem is, it's a theory that is treated as law. The scientific method says we will establish a hypothesis and then try to disprove it. Once it stands up, even with once it gets to the point where you can't knock it down, then it becomes a theory. But we've never been able to get past the theory stage with the theory of evolution. So, and that's a problem. It's a problem for them, and it becomes more and more of a problem every day because things are constantly being discovered, scientific discoveries that fly in the face of the simple claims of the Darwinian evolution worldview. Okay? So let's begin with a word of prayer, and I'll start talking for real. I think we probably have settled into who we're going to have, but let's see. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you, Lord, for those that are here and for this time we have together. I pray that you would make our discussion a fruitful one and helpful. I pray that you would help us all to have our questions answered as we leave this class and come back hungry for more for the next one next week. I pray your touch on each one who's here. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh, thank you. All right, so we have some more. All right, so before we begin, does anybody have any questions about anything I just said? Are you really a preacher? Yeah.
Very good. Another copy.
Yeah. Don't kick the camera. Thank you. I saw you step around. That was pretty good. You got a job.
Yep.
Okay. No? Any comments? How many people here believe in evolution?
To a certain degree, right?
Okay, we'll deal with that.
Just depends
How
on
many
what it
people
means.
here believe in creation? Sorry, I stepped right on that. What? Depends on what?
Isn't there different kinds of evolution?
Well, there can be. We'll talk about microevolution and macroevolution.
Yeah.
The difference between them and whether either one really works or not. There are parts of it that work. There are parts of it that don't, and we'll discuss that. One of the things, this is sort of the logical next stage in apologetics. Apologetics isn't learning how to apologize for Jesus, but it's learning how to contend. So apo from the Greek means to send out, apo, away. And then apologetics is to be able to get down to the underlying truth. So apologetics defends truth and refutes false doctrine. That's the twofold purpose of apologetics. We're not talking about polemics, which is a different study, and that becomes somewhat more combative. But when we get into apologetics, the first part of this we did, and ad nauseum, some might say, we talked about how do you know what is truth, different ways of knowing truth, different ways of understanding them, understanding worldviews, understanding all kinds of stuff. Now, I want to say a quick word about worldviews before we dive into this, okay? Who can tell me what a worldview is?
A view from the world?
Okay, that's a fair attempt. All right, you got another one for him?
Yeah.
Welcome.
We're going to take these seats here.
If you want something to write on, he probably won't hurt you if you try and press on the table there. All right. So you're being taped, by the way. 2 cameras are working, so behave yourself. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Good deal. The whole thing with a worldview is it is not taught; it is absorbed. And when you came kicking and screaming into the world, that was your first impression of this world. It's cold, I'm naked, I don't like this, it's not warm anymore. Ah! You start screaming your head off, right? That's what we see. Were you there?
Yeah.
And he probably did. And he's been screaming ever since, right?
Pretty much.
Okay. So worldview is absorbed as you learn it. And your experiences begin to inform that worldview in something other than a logical presentation or a rational absorption of an argument. Do you see where I'm going with this? So if you grow up in something, whatever it is, I grew up in a home, my father was an atheist. He had read the Bible from cover to cover and remained an atheist. He didn't like his mother's version of Christianity, and when I came to Christ, he didn't like mine very much either. He was an advocate with Madeline Murray O'Hare for taking In God We Trust off the money and things like that. Come on in. We have a seat right here with an outline just for you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And just a warning, these two cameras are running, so anything you say can and will be held against me, not you, all right? So worldview then is not something that is learned or taught rationally. It is something that is learned by experience. You learn first. Your first friends, believe it or not, were mom and dad. That's all you had to work with, right? Same with you, buddy. Yeah. So you started out with a very narrow group of friends. Okay, this is going to get a little tight. Grab a chair over there and put it back there, and you can sit in the big teacher seat, and you can sit in the chair.
Thank you. Sorry we're late.
See the desk back there, buddy? Go back there. Try not to trip on the camera stand, the tripod.
What's the tripod?
Yep, there we go. Now, those guys might even share the round table. They're not knights, but, you know, hey. Did you get an outline copy?
No, sir.
All right. Now, I was a sergeant in the Army, so I worked for a living. Unlike the Sirs. Boy, there's two of them there. Is he going to want one?
Yes, he will.
Okay, that's just in case. I have a couple up there. All right.
Thank you.
You bet. Now, what they said, by the way, is depending on how many people we have, we may end up in the other room across the hall. It's like a double room, so you can pull the divider back, and there's going to be a lot more room.
Wouldn't that be
He wasn't sure how many. Sorry?
Wouldn't that be a wonderful problem?
Yeah, it would. Okay, so worldview is not something that is learned rationally. Therefore, it cannot usually successfully be pierced from the outside with rational, logical arguments. It's just because it didn't develop that way. Now, as you grow up and your sphere of friends and influence begins to broaden with siblings, when they take stuff away from you or you take stuff away from them, and the interactions you have, and you learn things from your brothers and sisters, and then you start going out in the neighborhood and you meet friends and they have different ideas. You begin to absorb some of that. You go to school and begin to absorb that and begin to absorb what the teachers teach, and you usually do it without question. Now, do you think your dad ever intentionally lied to you, or your mom, either one? Or you just believe what they tell you, right? Yeah. No reason not to. How about you there, buddy? You believe what they say? Always. Okay. Now, how many still believe everything their parents ever said? How many parents wish their kids still believed everything you've ever said? It goes both ways, folks. All right, so worldview then is absorbed, and it is going to be the filter through which you view everything. Your understanding will process ideas through your worldview. If you start out with a worldview that has no inclination toward God, you're not likely to buy a biblical explanation for life and origins and some of the things we're going to talk about. So we are not going to try and undo worldviews, but it's good to understand what they are and how they form as we begin this discussion. Does that make sense to everyone? Does that, everybody, any questions there? Okay, now I said at the beginning, a couple came in since then. If there is a question that you have, if your shoe easily slips off, throw it at me if you can't get my attention. But generally, just raise your hand, and I'll call on you. It'll be taped, so make sure you measure your words carefully. You're really dumb, you know that? No, don't say that. Just say, well, you know, I'm not sure I agree. And then go from there. Or I just have a question about this, whatever. Frame it well. And so we'll have both parts of it, and we'll stitch them together. Any questions so far? All right, here we go. That, by the way, was not in there. No. Did he bring my original back? Did he give you my unstapled original?
I don't think so.
I'm going to go shoot him. Rob! Probably left it on there. All right, so I'll use this one. So, was there a Big Bang?
According to the world.
According to the world.
According
Okay.
to the latest theory.
according to the latest theory.
I think there was a Big Bang. I just think it was a different Big Bang.
Okay.
I think God spoke it into existence, and so there was a Big Bang.
Aha! You know, that's interesting. There was a guy that I used to, we kind of interacted a lot. By the way, I was a musician in the Army for 20 years. You'll have to forgive me. I'm kind of weird. Musicians are just that way. But he was a French horn player, and you know, my wife and I invited him home for dinner and this, that, and the other, and just developed a relationship, a friendship. And he was a devout, not Christian. And we had these discussions all the time. And one day I said, so what happened? How did the Big Bang happen? What caused it? And he said, well, we don't know. And I said, well, I do. He said, what? I said, God. He said, man, God's your reason for everything. I said, now you're catching on. Anyway, so, you know, that actually hits the nail on the head. Whatever happened caused things to take place that we're still trying to understand on the basis of science. And the universe is still in a process of unfolding at God's beginning and follow-up with the creation of the universe.
Absolutely.
He set things in motion. Yes, sir.
When you say God's beginning, you mean his beginning of time, or because, if you ask me, God has no beginning.
God did not begin, but I'm
Yes.
talking about his creation. The beginning of his creation,
Okay.
from that point forward, his intention has been unfolding ever since.
Yeah.
And science began, the first people who really began to get serious about measuring and observing and doing all the stuff that goes into a scientific process, were intent on trying to understand God's creation. It did not start out, as it is practiced by many today, as a way to disprove God or God's existence or whatever. It was a way to understand God's creation better. Does that make sense? That's what it was. I want to take a drink before I start coughing all over everybody.
So who was it?
Who was who?
So who started who started the measuring and the trying to understand?
I don't know. Copernicus is a pretty good candidate. I mean, he built a little computer device that we didn't even know about, but about a couple hundred, 300 BC. So there have been some very smart people trying to work things out. As a matter of fact, Antikythera mechanism. Anybody ever heard of that?
Yep.
You know what it is?
Yeah, it's a gear mechanism. It was a pre-machine machine with
Mhm.
gears and pins, wheels that turned together that they found buried off the coast of, under the ocean off the coast of Italy.
Yeah. Okay. I actually have a picture of it here. Looking at it, it doesn't look like much. But this is what it looks like when they found it and pulled it up. And when you get close to it, you can see there's a lot of incrustation, mineral buildup and stuff that comes with being under seawater for, centuries. And this thing, they did various ways of analyzing with penetrating x-rays and so on and so forth, and were able to develop the inner schema inside the gears, how they interacted, and to build a duplicate of that. It was able to accurately predict the positions at any given time of the planets, all the way out through Saturn, because that's all the planets they knew at the time. And and the moon cycle, and so on and so forth. So they plotted it and watched it, observed it, and this guy built a way to be able to run this thing to a particular time and predict where they would all be. That's pretty amazing to me. I mean, there's some smart people running around in our history, and we don't know anything about them, because a lot of stuff gets buried and lost. What are you going to do, right? And, so there are some amazing, I would call them marvels of innovation throughout human history, some of which we know about, some of which we don't. So science and inquiry like that began centuries before Christ and continues to this day. Now, one thing every human being has in common with every other human being is we're curious. Right? That sort of gives us a common stream of experience because we want to know, we want to understand, we want to dig in a little more. So, you know, this whole thing. So anyway, getting back to our subject at hand, was there a Big Bang? Well, let's do some talking about it, and we're going to look at some quantum physics and some other things. You won't think it's quantum physics. We're going to talk about it in a way that won't scare you off, make you want to run down the hall or out the window. But quantum physics is a way of dealing with astronomical events. How many people know that what a particle of light is called? What?
A photon?
A photon. And you said that over here, okay? And does a photon have weight? Say no. Does it have mass? Say
Yes.
yes. See? This guy's quick. Okay, so scientists have developed a way to determine that there are photons, which are particles of light. Now, they're not a particle in the sense of a grain of sand, but they are discrete units of light, and they can see the mass of a photon impacting very sensitive measuring equipment. And it helps us then to understand better how some of these other energy things work. It's gone also into the study of gravity, and we're finding out that gravity is comprised of waves. And, you know, and it interacts with other matter all the time. So there's a lot of stuff going on even today as we expand our understanding of the universe. And so was there a Big Bang? Now, what does science do? We talked about the scientific method. Science tries to find out stuff. They begin with a hypothesis. I wonder what that is. Is that a giant clock out there in that distant galaxy? Sure looks like it. It just does this. It signals constantly on a very precise and repeating scale. I hypothesize that there's a and as we study it more and the radio telescopes we have become more powerful and our measuring instruments and understanding of some of these things we're talking about, photons and so on and so forth, becomes more precise, we begin to understand there are things called pulsars and quasars, not TV sets. Quasar is you know, an astronomical phenomenon. The pulsar is, it looks like a binary star, so in another one you got two stars rotating around each other, and one of them is a dark star because it's exploded and collapsed. It interrupts the signal that we see, and so we see this constant thing. It looks like a very precise signal. It looks man-made, but it's not. Get it? So the hypothesis breaks down in the face of what we find, so we have to out of the tape.
Oh no, we're keeping that.
Oh. No, okay, don't hold it against me. Well, a guy named Ed runs a sound booth and video stuff over there, if you know it or not. But I talked to him. He's going to take these things and stitch them together into a whole. So he's going to put that remark you just made, and I'm just saying that. No, I have no idea what he's going to do. So we have to develop a new hypothesis and take measures to develop new data, more complete data, more informed data gathering to understand what a pulsar is and how it works. And as we get more powerful, we can begin to see astronomical anomalies that we can't see with a visual telescope. We can only see so far, but with radio telescopes, that expanded a whole new way of inquiry and understanding, because it measures energy and energy concentrations and so on and so forth. Okay, so is there evidence for the so-called Big Bang? Well, through the 1980s and early 90s, support for the Big Bang began to wane. In April 1992, a guy named George Smoot, who wants that for a last name? All right, never mind. Bad question to ask. The third, so they kept it going,
Yeah.
discovered that background radiation is not really uniform. The assumption was there was a uniform noise in the universe, sort of a background. When you're at night, okay, confession time. How many of you have gone to sleep and you wake up and the TV's going, yeah, white noise and no signal. Yeah, you wake up to that. Okay.
They don't
There was,
anymore.
I'm sorry?
I said they don't anymore.
Not anymore. That's
No.
why I said who can remember that.
Yeah.
See, and only older people raise their hands. But the point is that background noise was assumed to be a thing, and it didn't have any variation. It was just background noise. Then they began to pick up differences in different ways. So there was one evidence of an expanding universe called red shift. You know what red shift is?
It's a game.
A game? Okay. I'll take that for what it's worth. It is also, you know what the Doppler theory is? There's a guy named, I think his name was Doppler, and they named it after him. And you stand there with a microphone, and as the train comes, now what's happening there? This is the Doppler theory at work.
As the train is approaching, sound waves are being compressed, and
Yeah.
as it passes you, they are expanding.
Right. So when it gets closer and closer, the
Changing
pitch
pitch.
seems to rise.
Yeah. Change in pitch.
Right. And as it passes away, it takes them longer. The frequency of the waves, it takes longer to get back to you, the sound waves. And so it appears to your ear that the sound goes lower. Now, if the train just suddenly stopped, the noise of the horn would be, it would be very irritating after a few minutes, right? As it's blasting its way through the world and trying to let you know it's coming through the intersection. But essentially, red shift is the Doppler theory writ large. It is a way to understand that as waves are coming back to us, it tends to shift the visual spectrum, and other waves of energy that are not visible to the naked eye are going to shift lower on the scale. Now, the lower the wave frequency in light, it moves toward the red end of the spectrum. Maybe I should do it that way, because I usually do it left to right. And the faster waves tend toward the blue end of the spectrum, and then eventually get up to ultraviolet, and you can't see those either. And so what we found out is there is a measurable, observable red shift as objects in our visible and radio telescope visible universe are moving away from us. So there is change in the dimension and size and relational spatial locations in the universe. So then we began talking about the expanding universe. Now, if you look there on your little outline, radio waves, microwaves, infrared, that's all below what you can see. Those are longer wavelengths and therefore less frequent. Visible light in the middle, which we can see, and then ultraviolet, and then X-rays and gamma rays, which move out of the visible spectrum. So that's what that means. That's kind of what I just tried to describe to you in a kind of clumsy way, but this does a pretty good job. Now, visible light portion of the electromagnetic spectrum We start with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. My wife loves purple, so she likes the violet in. Anyway, so when different chemicals burn, they burn with different colors, we found out. Okay? The theory of redshift galaxies is that starlight should be plottable, but is actually slightly shifted to the red side. A redshifted galaxy is taken to mean that the galaxy is moving away from our position. And keep in mind, these observations all have to be understood from where we are. Now, there is a principle in science that says the observer influences what he observes. And we need to understand, as we observe these phenomena, things are moving toward us or away from us, is going to change whether we're seeing as they move away toward red or get closer toward the blue end of the spectrum. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So we have to take into account where we are in our galaxy in relation to other galaxies. Excuse me. We'll edit this out too. I usually gargle there, but my wife says, don't, that's nasty. Sometimes it helps. All right. So a redshifted galaxy is taken to mean the galaxy is moving away from our position. When the vast majority of all known galaxies are redshifted, it means we have an expanding universe. And there seems to be a fairly uniform degree of this red shift depending on distance from our position. If the speed and direction of the moving galaxies could be reversed, they would meet at a central point 17.7 billion, as Carl Sagan would say, years ago. Y'all know who Carl Sagan is?
Mm-hmm.
The universe was created billions and billions of years ago. And then he has to correct himself. I said corrected, created, but he would never have said that. Thus, red-shifted galaxies are taken to be evidence of the Big Bang. And then Dr. Donald DeYoung comes along and ruins that whole thing. He says that there may be other explanations. All right. Now, and I don't remember if we actually get it to it this time. I don't think we do. But I'll say it now, and if we repeat it, that's okay. You'll remember it better. Right now, even though they talk about 17.7 billion years, the visible universe we can see and the evidence we see has given scientists to understand that the universe is 13.7 billion years old.
That's
Because-
our universe.
Huh?
That's the universe.
That's the universe.
Okay.
Because the speed of light and distance and all the things you do to fix locations in the universe in astronomy lead us to understand that the furthest object away is 13.7 billion light years away, and therefore that's how old the universe must be. There's a problem with that. With the advent of radio telescopy and the increase in sophistication and measurement at that distance, thousands that we can see in that way of galaxies are suddenly out there, somewhere around 23 or 24 billion light years away. So either the universe is 13.7 billion years old, or it's 23.4 billion years old, or more likely, if we could see further out, maybe even older than that. How old is God? Trick question. Okay. He has no age because he exists outside of time and space. That's a discussion for another day. But anyway, so there is a problem. This is the introduction to the issue or the question, the subject. So there are some failures to account for design. Now the scientific method, which is supposed to start out opinion neutral, doesn't in this case. it makes assumptions, one of which is there's no God, therefore there's no intelligent design. So we need to figure out what does make things tick and why do they work the way they do, without taking into account intelligent design or a designer, right? Okay. One of the failures is its inability to count for design. If you walk through a forest, the old argument, and you see a watch lying there, ticking away or keeping time, do you look for a bush from which it grew and then fell? Of course not. What you do is look at it, see what brand it is, and say, wow, this is a really nice Rolex, or whatever, right? But it didn't grow here. Somebody, somewhere, put this exquisite functioning device together, and then somebody else is dumb enough to lose it, let it fall off the wrist or whatever. So I got a cool Rolex, but that nobody is going to stop and look at that and think it's a berry. It didn't fall off a bush, right? Nobody's going to wear a time cone. Well, I guess you could do a time cone. If you tilt it just right, the sort of the sundial thing. Never mind. Okay. So intelligent design, you look at it and you can tell this didn't appear naturally. Somebody somewhere sat down and created this together with all kinds of intricate moving parts to create this watch that keeps time. Okay? However, what has been observed is that this Earth appears to be specifically designed to support life. And at least so far, we can't find any other. We found lots of planets, but none of them appear to have all the right qualifications to support life, at least life as we know it. Now that also has a sort of a presupposition, and when you get into the study of interpreting the Bible and stuff, you're going to deal with presuppositions. Is your hand up for a question, or are you just holding your pen in the air? Yeah, you did that. I want to make sure. Okay, not a question. Cool. I saw that hand. See, I got that class in seminary. That they teach you how to see that hand. Okay, so the observation, we assume that we're going to look for life like us. It has to be carbon-based life forms that require carbon-oxygen exchange in the atmosphere and not too much in the radiation spectrum and so on and so forth. I don't know what God created or how He created it or whether there's other life out there. Now, the design of this class is not to answer those questions, but certainly not to rule out possibilities, because God is a creative God who has an amazing ability to make so many things all unique. Your fingerprints are unique. Your eyeball prints are unique. I mean, there's so many things about you that are 100% absolutely unique. Your chromosome chains inside your genes are unique, and I'm not talking about what you wear. Genes, those little tiny things in there that have all that information so that your body grows the way God designed it, where you were fearfully and wonderfully created in the womb, and your name was known before the foundation of the world. All right, so however, it appears to be specifically designed to support life. This observation has been noted in so many different fields by so many different scientists and philosophers that this element of design has been given a name: the anthropic cosmological principle. Now, anthropos is a Greek word for man in general, not male figures, but humankind. And so this anthropic cosmological, the cosmos principle, governs a lot of what we look for, observe, and how we interpret it in terms of the possibilities of life on distant planets. Apologist Hugh Ross, progressive creationist with a PhD in astronomy from the University of Toronto, provided 33 different details that had to be, quote, just right, unquote, in order for life to have a chance on planet Earth. So, we'll take a quick look at those. Everybody okay? We're not going too fast, too far, saying things too weird, don't know what he's talking about, who is this guy anyway, and all that kind of, okay, we're good? Any questions? Okay. So, 1, the number of stars in the planetary system had to be 1. If more than 1, the tidal interactions would disrupt planetary orbits. If none, there would be no heat for life to exist. So that's one principle. The parent star color had to be just right. If redder or bluer, photosynthetic response would be insufficient. Plants wouldn't grow, so we'd have nothing to eat. Well, the animals wouldn't have anything to eat, and then we wouldn't have anything to eat because we eat plants and animals, right? So there's a whole food chain thing going on here. Number 3, the planet's surface gravity had to be just right. If the gravity was stronger, the atmosphere would retain too much ammonia and methane to support life. If weaker, the planet's atmosphere would lose too much water. Are you getting this? Now, what did that statement, planet's surface gravity had to be just right. If it was stronger, the atmosphere would retain too much ammonia and methane to support life. That almost sounds like global warming. I tried to say it with a straight face. Now it's called climate change. Anybody know what happened in the 1300s, or no, the 13th century, the 1200s, in terms of climate?
Wasn't it like cold?
It was really cold.
Yeah.
And it's referred to as the mini ice age. How about that? There have been measurable cycles of cold and warm way before we came along and started doing stuff. So these cycles continue unabated, and it's interesting to me that they had to change the name because it turns out that it wasn't following the predicted results. And this is an aside, I don't want to get too buried in it, but I do want to just sort of mention a couple of things. The polar ice cap in the north is actually growing, not shrinking. It is changing shape. It's deeper, it's thicker. Did you know that they recently discovered there is volcanic activity below the Antarctic continent where that ice shelf is, a part of which broke off? Gee, that could cause some warming too, huh? I mean, all of a sudden that goes out the window too, you know, with Al Gore yelling at us, see, carbon footprint. Then he jumps on his carbon footprint producing airplane, private plane, and flies somewhere else to complain about it. So, you know, I don't, also there are, and I don't have names because we're not really getting too deep into this, but I read an article of a guy who's been working in analytics, mathematical models and so on and so forth his whole life, and the model that they used, the predictive model in developing this climate change theory, it turns out, he said, I recognized that from when I was in college, but they got one of the factors in the equation wrong, and that affected their predictions. And if they go back to the algorithm, to the mathematical model that they used, and correct that element they screwed up, it changes everything. And then there was a cover-up with emails coming out that they had to keep producing this information even though we had evidence to the contrary so that everybody will continue to believe. We have to support the narrative. Isn't that amazing when I begin to believe something? So then everything after that begins to become a defense of the belief, not a true scientific inquiry to understand more thoroughly. And there is a difference. We see that all over our culture. See, we talked about, you know, in the apologetics portion of this, that atheists are very religious about their atheism. They are. So we won't go any further than that. But anyway, you get the idea. All right, so the tilt of the Earth on its axis, 23 degrees, had to be just right. If it was greater or less, the surface temperatures would be too great to support life. If it's aimed directly at the sun, it's going to heat everything up and nothing's going to survive. So if you do it so that the sun rays glance off in a cyclical way during the cycles of the year and they're going around the sun, things stay at a moderate temperature in order to support life. Yes, sir.
This is all going based on that the Earth is a globe. I know people who are flat earthers.
You do.
Yeah.
You're sitting in front of a couple of them.
Probably.
No, I'm not saying probably. We had all the way through the apologetics class, we discussed this ad nauseum. So we talked about all this stuff, but okay, go ahead.
Well, no, I'm just saying, these statements are reading these statements, it's pretty clear they're going from a
Global perspective.
yeah.
Yeah. So how do you pinpoint on the globe where the edge of the flat Earth is?
Yeah.
How do you explain observations? Well, it's a conspiracy. These guys are just telling us that these objects out there are around. How do we know the sun is round? It might be flat too. I mean, we just,
Yeah.
to me, it's an ultimately indefensible position that requires a house of cards of evidentiary assembly of facts to produce some semblance of a proof. But it doesn't take much to blow it down, so.
Right.
Anyway, your hand was first, then you're next.
Well, I've seen things through a telescope and they're not flat.
How do you know?
Well, because I saw them.
Well, you saw them as round, but there's round discs out there. Must be round discs. Okay, anyway. I mean, see, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Or the flat earther's advocate, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yes, sir.
So everything we talked about, would that work in a flat Earth model?
I'm glad you brought that up, by the way. I mean,
Just-
it makes for an interesting adjunct to
Yeah.
the
I'm
conversation.
sorry if I'm throwing the course.
No, you're fine, you're
off.
fine. I told you, there's no such thing as a bad question, and I'm not afraid to enter. The thing I started our apologetics with is, if God is a source for all truth, we should, as Christians, never be afraid to confront truth. Period. Ever. That includes flat earth, or any other kind of, theory that you want to develop. So he's back there smiling and grinning at me. The rotation of the Earth, 24 hours, had to be just right. If longer, the diurnal temperature differences between day and night would be too great. Di is 2, so the diurnal. And if any shorter, atmospheric wind velocities would be too great. I mean, since they sort of determined things are round, there hasn't been a whole lot of serious, until recently on the internet, entertainment of the idea of a flat Earth. But anyway, it's out there. The internet is such a wonderful repository
Junk?
of
And it's all true.
yeah, everything you see on the internet must be true, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's, huh?
So just like the bathroom wall.
Yep.
Wow!
Yeah.
That's for old school, yeah.
It kind of says it,
That's
doesn't it?
good. That's good.
All right, so, and I don't want to say misinformation or disinformation. I will say that misinformed perhaps, but we have so many sources of information from which we draw conclusions. You see something, and if it makes sense, what are you going to do? You're going to clamp onto it and say, I believe this, and defend it as a religion almost. Yes, ma'am.
So if we're gonna take that back to our worldview, then if we're getting our worldview off the internet, then we're absorbing
Yeah,
all of that, and that will help to create our worldview.
it can certainly add to it or
If-
affect it, yes.
If our choice is to get our worldview biblically, then that's where we're gonna take all of our, our flat earth, whatever questions we have, we're gonna take all of our stuff to God and go to his word and figure out among his people, among his teaching, among his stuff, and we're gonna get our worldview there.
Well, the Bible never makes an attempt to prove the existence of God. There's no chapter of any book in the entire Bible, all 66 of them, that says the case for the existence of God
No.
is firm because, or whatever. It assumes God,
Yes.
period. There is also language in the Bible that indicates circular and round things interacting in the universe. See, the Bible does not support a flat earth theory. Punkt. I like that word. P-U-N-K-T. German. It's the German word for period. But it sounds so much, it doesn't do it. Punkt. It just, that's it. We're done. Period.
That's kind of how German
Period is kind of washy-wishy. What?
German's very blunt. Yeah.
It's a very dense little word. Yes, sir.
So with all the science facts that we're speaking about, can we say that it presupposes that the Earth is round?
Yes.
So would they have to first prove that the Earth
The
is
burden
round?
of proof is on the detractors. Yes. Punkt. Were you indicating a comment? Okay, I just want to make sure. All right. The strength of the Earth's magnetic field had to be just right. If any stronger, electromagnetic storms would be too severe. If any weaker, the ozone shield and life on land would be inadequately protected. It has to be just right. Hard stellar and solar radiation is not nice stuff. Yes, sir.
I'd also like to point out that based on that, the
And he was
magnetic
too. He
field
was
thing,
doing this.
you take a bar magnet, North
Mhm.
Pole, South Pole, the magnetic waves come out in an umbrella shape, north to
Right.
south, south to north.
Right?
So that would form a globe.
Mhm.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Okay, you're getting some interesting smiles behind you. All right. The atmospheric electrical discharge rate, lightning, has to be just right. If greater, too much damage from fires would occur, unless you live in California. If less, too little nitrogen would be fixed in the atmosphere. So it has, forest fires happen by design. I mean, it's a bummer, but they do. And if we try and manage things like that, sometimes we get it wrong. And it produces its own set of unexpected consequences, unanticipated consequences, for which we then become responsible because we're managing nature. And now these climate change folks want to manage climate. Gee, I can't wait for them to really begin to start to manipulate stuff like that if they ever can, which I doubt. But it's kind of scary that they would apply their particular idea set to a much larger universe around them, and then things just really get out of whack, if they can do that. So, it's problematic on all ends of the question as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it produces a spherical result. All right. The ratio of oxygen in the atmosphere has to be just right. If there's too much, plants and hydrocarbons would burn up too easily. If less, advanced animals would not be able to breathe. See, simple protozoans and so on and so forth absorb the oxygen they need or whatever. The vapor level, a water vapor level in the atmosphere has to be just right. If it's greater, a runaway greenhouse effect would ensue. If less, rainfall would be too meager to support life on land. And then the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere has to be just right. If greater, a runaway greenhouse effect would develop. If less, plants would be unable to maintain efficient photosynthesis. Okay? Now, does that support the climate change or global warming theories? No. It does realistically allow that too much carbon can create a greenhouse effect. Too much oxygen can make an atmosphere whereby higher beings, more complex beings, could not exist. That doesn't just include us, that means cattle, I mean steaks, you know what I'm saying? Sorry. Okay, so remember that these are just 10 of the 33 that scientists have recognized so far. Mathematically, Ross concludes, quote, much less than 1 chance in a million trillion, wait a minute, a million has 6 zeros, and then a trillion has 12 zeros. So a million, 12 zeros, that's a pretty big number. A million trillion, really? I mean, you'd have to have a, yeah, okay, well anyway. I like the word gazillion.
I like quadrillion.
Quadrillion? Do you know what a googleplex is? Oh, okay. Are you a mathematical person? You like math? Numbers? Okay. Well, a googleplex is an infinity of infinities.
He likes infinity.
So a million trillion isn't as big as a, like what?
He likes infinity.
Infinity. Okay, well, there you go. Googleplex. That is an infinity fan's dream. An infinity of infinities. And then, so that's where Google got their name. They can, you know, everything out there. So anyway, never mind. Okay, so much less chance than 1 in a million trillion exists that even one such planet would occur anywhere in the universe. And we're talking about by just simply the result of natural processes taking place and producing exactly the correct balance of all these and other factors that we haven't talked about. Those who contend for a mindless, purposeless explosion have much to account for. Note, atheist astronomers do not have the mere responsibility of explaining simple, basic order, as difficult as that may be, which it is, and we'll discuss it, but must explain the very high degree of order that is actually observed in the universe. Now, the assumption is that when all this stuff happened, these primordial gases and matter and all this stuff floating around began to coalesce and everything was spinning, and pretty soon we have things coagulating into hard bodies, planetary bodies around a star that coagulated and all this stuff, and everything is spinning around and it assumes a spherical result, by the way. So with all this stuff, I just thought I'd throw that in. A homogeneous explosion should allow for certain predictable results of that explosion. In physics, inertia is described as, quote, the tendency of all objects and matter in the universe to stay still if still, or if moving to go on moving in the same direction unless acted upon by some outside force. So if you start a car and set it to running with a stick on the accelerator, it's going to go straight until it runs out of gas or hits something, right? But if something else intervenes, it's going to change its inertial direction. How fast it's going to move, I mean, it's going to affect every aspect of it. If it hits it hard enough to jerk the stick loose, then it'll probably go back to an idle and eventually slow down to a stop. But inertia is the tendency to keep going in the same direction unless acted upon otherwise. The law of the conservation of angular momentum maintains, among other things, that rotating bodies will tend to continue rotating in the same direction at the same speed unless those bodies are acted upon by some outside force. For example, astrophysicists believe the sun's rotational velocity, once on its axis clockwise every 28 days, is a leftover remnant from the nebula out of which it was formed. We're almost done. The present dominant model for the formation of the solar system contends that the 9 planets and their satellites originated out of the same rotating nebula. The above principles are called laws because exceptions, 1, have not been observed in the laboratory, and 2, have not been accounted for theoretically. However, the present solar system as it currently exists cannot be accounted for by the above laws. How's that for a teaser for next week? Because that's exactly what we're going to start with. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So, I've been hearing a lot and studying like the new Earth thing. Like you're saying like billions of years, you know, there's some...
Yeah, I'm saying scientists say that, right.
Yeah, that they're saying like 7,000. Like some pastors, I know we went to expo at a church we were going to in Washington that I guess the
The
guy...
young Earth model.
Yeah, and they're making like an ark there, and I guess they made it in Ohio, but they have a whole thing going on, and I mean, that sounds very plausible.
We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
There are different kinds of creationism. You've got fiat creationists who believe, and that's basically what they believe. God can, by fiat, create a universe and everything's already working, including the light waves coming from billions and billions of light years away, right? So he can create the universe already in motion. He doesn't have to create a stick of dynamite and set it on fire and let it go boom. And when's the last time you saw order come from an explosion? Even carefully contained explosions that bring down a building still result in extreme disorder. What about the jet planes that flew into the two towers? That produced nothing but disorder in a big way. I mean, exploding things do not tend to produce order. And so that's something we have to keep in mind. The Big Bang sounds nice and it's a convenient way to look at things, and you begin to build your models around it and your assumptions. But as a result, if you don't look outside and don't allow for the possibility of intelligent design, then your assumptions are going to be limited to no designer, and you have to come up with a way to explain it otherwise. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and also I was watching this one Science on Science Channel thing, and they were talking about how...
Don't you love it?
Yeah, that the planets were formed by basically rocks crashing into each other,
Right.
and
They stuck.
Yeah, and I'm just like, really? I mean, that just sounded almost ludicrous.
Let's
to
go
me.
create let's all get a rock, stand in a circle, and throw them at each other and see if something comes of it.
Yeah.
I vote we do it.
Do what?
I'll bring rocks.
Love to see it happen, right?
I'll bring the magnetic field.
Okay. Any other comments? You bring the magnetic field. All right, is your husband saying he's really attractive? Never mind, we won't go there. Anybody? All right, yes, sir.
What do you think about the Infiniverse?
The Infiniverse?
That there's infinite universes so that anything is possible.
Well, I think infinite universe is a very interesting theory.
I think.
Have you ever heard of the Mandelbrot set? Go look it up. Mandelbrot.
I
The
never
Mandelbrot
heard of
set.
that.
You have an internet access?
Not right now.
Oh, okay, never mind. Mandelbrot set. Look it up for him and let him see it. Anyway, anybody ever heard of the Mandelbrot set? It's a mathematical construct. You know what Paisley looks like, these things that are they go around, and as you get closer and closer, then you see more things that go around, and it's an infinite regression or progression of these same exact figures that keeps going and going and going. And that's, so, we don't really know. And I have another picture, what's the name of it? Anyway, it's a construct that attempts to show what an 11-dimensional object would look like folding in on itself. It's pretty interesting. It's actually on my Facebook page. I think it's pretty cool. I had it for my desktop. Yes, sir.
It kind of reminds me of two mirrors that face each other. If you look down at either one of them, they seem to go on forever.
Look at yourself and how many
Yeah.
versions of yourself you see. Okay, well, we passed from discussing the material to dissecting, so let's go on. Next time, we're going to talk about this exact thing on which we ended, okay? So here's, I'll put it down. The teaser for next week. They're called laws because exceptions have not been observed in the laboratory, have not been accounted for theoretically. However, the present solar system, as it currently exists, cannot be accounted for by the above laws. That's where we will start next week. So that's the teaser. Are you okay with having one outline per week? And you'll notice it says session 1 at the bottom. Next week it'll say session 2. So if you keep them, you can keep them in order. And I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of information in these outlines. Hopefully sufficient room for you to take additional notes. Okay? Father, in Jesus' name, I pray for everyone here and all those who are coming. And I pray for the services this morning that you would be with the pastor and the worship team and everyone who comes on the campus here. They would begin to sense the presence of your Holy Spirit. We pray that you would have your way in the service this morning, as only you can do, and transform lives for the glory of God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you.